You're on the Budget Committee. The budget passed 216 to 212. We had Diane Black on earlier, and I don't think anybody wanted it to be that close. You had an op-ed in which you called this a stunt and a gimmick, simply passing this budget. Why?
Well, wait, I always talk about budgets. I'm on the Budget Committee. We have not followed a budget. It's one of the frustrating things I've said about Congress. We pass budgets, then we break budgets. So what I said was, I'm okay passing this budget because it really is just a blueprint. It's a gimmick. It's something we don't follow. The real goal here was to get through the budget so we can get to tax reform. And that's what I was trying to say, and that's what I mean. I'm always concerned about budgets, especially passing a budget that has a $1.5 trillion deficit over the next 10 years. But I know we don't follow these budgets, and I know the true drivers are mandatory spending, and that's what we have to look at.
You talk mandatory spending, and this is fascinating. There's all this focus now on tax cuts and tax reform. We're going to cut this many billions out, that many billions out, that many trillions out. Great to cut taxes, and virtually zero discussion of cutting spending. Is it time to have that discussion, or is it simply too unpopular as of now?
Well, again, if we're going to think about the next generation, I keep saying that. Too many times we think about the next election, not the next generation. We've got to get these tax cuts done because we need to grow the economy. And I'm all in with President Trump to make sure we do this. We've got to grow our economy. We have the highest tax rates in the world, statutorily. Effectively, we're still in the top 3 or 4. So we have to reduce that so business can grow. We have to reduce our taxes for middle-income Americans so they can help us grow the economy. But that's not going to be the entire answer. We have to look at our spending. Our mandatory spending is really the drivers of the debt, and I'm hoping we can get to that as well.
Well, the president, though, has already said he doesn't want to cut entitlements when it comes to Social Security and Medicare specifically. You are uniquely honest in that you will call this a stunt and a gimmick. Perhaps some of your fellow members understand that, just aren't willing to say it on national television or in an op-ed. But by that count, it took 216 to 212 votes. You could barely get to 215 to pass something that's a stunt and a gimmick. How possibly in the next month or so are you going to get enough votes to pass something that is so meaningful and will have so many different constituencies in it as real tax reform?
Well, look, I respect all the members of Congress, and they're all representing different districts. Most of the individuals who didn't vote for the budget are concerned about the SALT, the state and local income tax. And I spoke with some of them, and they're still concerned about it as we move forward. That's why we have to look at all these things. I'm also pretty unique in saying that I support just reducing our taxes and not looking at shifting, because some of these changes are just going to shift the tax expense to somebody else. That's what they're concerned about. They're concerned about their constituents. In the end, we have to bring these tax rates down. We had a hearing, Leland, a couple months back, and all I kept hearing was people saying the exact same thing. We need to reduce our rates. We need to make sure we have...
Congressman, though, everybody agrees on that. And at the same time, probably outside your office, you've got all the lobbyists for the oil companies and for the realtors and for the drug companies and for every other industry all saying, well, yeah, we get that you need to cut taxes on everybody, but make sure you also keep our special deductions in, whether it's the oil depletion allowance or how we can depreciate our private jets. Who are you going to start saying no to? Because that's going to start next week.
Well, what I say is we got to look at the next generation. We're going to have to make some of these tough decisions, and that's why we have to get tax rates reduced. This is all about growing the economy. At the same time, we can't forget the expense side. So I think when the lobbyists start coming in, we got to start telling. The way I do it, I'm a business guy and a CPA. I was a business guy for almost 3 decades. I always say, give me a pro forma. Let me see how this is going to change. When you reduce people's tax rates, sometimes they don't need those deductions. I mean, I always chuckle.
Have you ever seen a pro forma that actually worked out?
Well, absolutely, mine in business. But I will say it's going to be interesting. There's no doubt everybody will be in next week, but they've got to realize lowering the taxes is important.
Well, I'm admiring of any pro forma that works. We'll look forward to seeing this play out. Thank you, sir.